The deal is this. Tell you, when I was a kid, that read Dropper Hunter Whilst and all this real. Tell you, when I was a kid, that read Dropper Hunter Whilst and all this real. Yeah, I'm pissed. Yeah, I'm pissed. Come on. What? Okay, by the time we finish this, you're all going to be practicing magicians.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where Gary and I talk about all things X-Men, and we are done. We're wrapping it up, Gary. This is the last.
Wrapping up. Nothing comes after this.
This is the last time Grant Morrison ever wrote for the X-Men. A fact that I have not checked. Probably true, though.
I think that's true, actually, yeah, because he left Marvel very shortly after this, or right after this. And was doing independent stuff in DC for basically until now.
Yeah. I don't know that I've read much modern day Grant Morrison. Like, I think I've always just read like 80s, 90s, and early aughts stuff. I don't know what I've read from, like, I just can't, I don't, if it's all DC stuff, then that's the reason I skip it, because I just don't give a shit. But like, I haven't read any of that stuff, so.
His indie stuff that's come out since then has been good. I picked up The Nameless last year. And it's like a classic, like trippy, scary sci-fi.
Oh, word. Okay.
Story. Like it's really good. The Nameless is awesome. I think they're making a movie of it, because when it came out, there's a symbol in it, and the director tweeted the symbol, and a lot of people thought it was the Berserk symbol.
Oh, this is James Gunn. I had this conversation with my buddy Chris the other day, because we remembered the Berserk symbol controversy, because a bunch of people thought it was a Bloodborne thing.
Yes.
And then, but neither one of us could figure out what the movie was that actually came out. Neither one of us, we remembered was the question and not the actual the solution. So interesting.
Yeah. It was a movie based on The Nameless, but I don't know, that could be in development hell or what have you. But after I read the comic, I would be very excited to see that movie, because the comic is awesome. And it's just like done in one. It's like 6 issues and that's it.
Oh, perfect. So, perfect. Yeah.
Good shit. So this is the finale of Grant Morrison's run on this. We get a big kind of pinup cover of this new group of X-Men. The Sentinel presenting them to us. Rover just being like, "Do you want some X-Men?" Here they are.
Here they are in my splayed hand. Here you go.
Yep. Here's X-Men. It's like the character select from Golden Axe.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. I assure you it is. This is a longer issue than normal, and there's a lot that happens into it, so we should jump right in.
Yep, I'm into it. So just to pick us up where we left off, the X-Men are attempting to attack the Beast on his continent of Transatlantis. Phoenix has come out to confront Wolverine, while the Beast has meanwhile sucker punched the Institute and infected them all with a feeder virus that eats minds. And for some reason, we opened this up 3 billion years ago.
Yep, we're getting Sublime origins in this issue. The primal screams of the newborn Earth. And this is Sublime's perspective. We found ourselves as one mind. We were the first genome, the RNA and DNA, perfectly adapted, the pinnacle of evolution. So he was that primordial stuff. Very self-aware and dominant. And then these carbon slime colonies started growing and creating life as we understood. And he basically says, like, we bartered our genetic innovations with more organized life forms to kind of stick around with them. So like as other, creatures and plants and slimes and stuff started popping up, Sublime was always there.
Yes.
Advancing it and being, hiding in the DNA, basically.
Yeah, the idea of essentially infecting a host, but the symptoms of that are increased survivability, so that the parasite can then survive as well, is really fascinating, and kind of explains why this is so hard to pick up a little bit, because like eventually this thing gets to Sublime and decides to call itself Sublime, and then like it all goes nuts from there. But it took a long time for that to happen because
billions of years.
Yeah, until you get to modern day X-Men, where evolution decides to kick it into high gear. Like, and that's the whole thing that the mutants are about. And like, all of a sudden these things started happening. That which took hundreds, if not millions, of years. Like, all of a sudden that started happening rapidly. And Sublime, as this parasitic entity, like also had that reaction of like, oh shit, like I have to kill these mutants because they could survive me, and I can't allow that to happen.
Yeah, they make invulnerable offspring.
Yes.
And he's doing this, he's monologuing this to Apollyon, who is on the ground shaking. Just really, really having a hard time. Like, you promised to end my pain. You said you'd make me whole. He ignores him because, again, Sublime is not a good leader and is above all this shit. Basically saying that they infected the mutants with aggression to divert their energies into needless conflict. In this struggle, they'll never breed and grow their population to be a threat. And Apollyon is still saying like, no, they're having kind of two different conversations. Like, they're not listening to each other. Apollyon saying like, I've been your messenger forever. I've endured agonies. Give me the Phoenix blood. And he basically dismisses again, patience, Apollyon, our eugenic Eden is almost upon us, where you'll get this. And then he goes into the chamber himself to give himself the Phoenix blood, telekinetic godhood in a jar. And this is where Apollyon is like, oh, you promised it was for me, not you. And he's like, I lied. Like, it's survival of the fittest. Like,
yeah. The power is mine alone. One rule: survival of the. And then as he gets injected with all of these things, he goes back to Beast and starts yelling out these weird noises.
Yeah.
We switch over to Wolverine and the Phoenix having this conversation, and the Phoenix is like, the kindly Beast is trying to help you pass with dignity. Extinction is part of the cycle. New life will come, and Logan is basically like, nah, man, come on, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
like, read my mind. Like, can we just short circuit this? Like, can I give you the TLDR on this one, dude? Like, let's go.
Yeah, I love it. Like, Hank was a doctor. Does destroy all intelligent life sound like an idea he'd come up with? Like, and she's given pause, like, oh, you seem representative of a potentially viable species. And he goes, nice of you to notice. Which again, real good. And he basically just says, like, listen, like, Sublime did all this shit. Your boss fucked all this stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
He's been doing the U-Men, the super signals, nanoviruses, drugs, all of this. She presumably does look at his mind because she starts talking about the X-Men at this point. And, she's like, oh, the Beast said they were lethal variant life forms, spreading like a sickness. I came to fix this. As this is happening, the non-important new X-Men are still fucking around. We had to get this resolution of Tom Skylark's arc, and Eva's arc here, which again, I don't like the time that is spent on this very much.
Yeah, she's saying like the Phoenix is assuming a psychic attack posture, like they are preparing to take down the Phoenix, and they have to get ready. And Tom is just over here brooding, like he's just like, oh well, Rover saw us together and thought I was ready to dump him for you, and like nobody knows what we've been through. I'm nothing without him. I listen to My Chemical Romance because it's cool.
It gets becoming like very guyliner. This part, and I'm like, man, like this emo turn for you, Tom Skylark. The whole point, like previously, Tom Skylark was motivated by not wanting his sacrifice of the Proud People to be in vain, and now he's just kind of thrown it away because his robot died. And I'm like, you would not get enough words to have two character traits, and be horny for robots. Like, there's just not enough time for you to have, be an attempt at these three dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
So the Wolverine's still trying to talk Jean out of it. Yeah. Like, listen, you're not somebody's servant. You're the Phoenix. You're still Jean Grey Summers. Like, you are a grade A telekinetic tapped into a cosmic scale power.
And as she's kind of exploring his mind, she's questioning like Scott, Logan, and this is where the Blackbird is steadily creeping up on her. And we see Cassandra Nova and Martha in the Blackbird, and Cassandra Nova is saying, my Shi'ar files Tim in the Phoenix consciousness accesses its human host via the so-called crown chakra. And they've mentioned crown a couple of times. Like, I don't know if this is specifically related to that, but it seems logical to do that. Cassandra Nova says, I saw all this coming. We're all going to die, but it's for a good cause. It's for a good cause. It's that a good cause always gives meaning to a bad death. Unplug the crown. And that's basically them just shutting Jean off from the Phoenix abilities, from the Phoenix Force.
Yep. The crown chakra is a real thing, which I just found that out
Yeah.
just now. Like I didn't know that. The crown that they talk about, the crown of the White Hot Room, which is where all the phoenixes hang out.
Yeah.
Which is probably, that's intentional. Like the crown chakra is probably some chakra stuff. I do not know very much about chakra things. So this makes, Jean flame off. Wolverine catches her and she's Jean Grey. Like, how long was I gone? And he's like, it's been 150 years. And she says, oh my God, what happened? And here's where we get how this dark future came about.
Yes.
Here.
So there's, I like the way that this page is laid out a lot. Basically, we've got 8 panels, all equally sized, like 2 columns, but then we've also got 2 additional panels on the page that show Logan telling her about the things that are happening, while the main panels on here are all past stuff. So essentially,
well, the past ones are also sepia tone.
Yes, yeah.
And it's cool looking. There's a major continuity error though.
Basilisk, right? Where'd that happen? I actually remembered his name. Yeah. That's the continuity error.
It's Days of Future Cast continuity error.
That's how you know that I got replaced by a clone. I start remembering these motherfuckers' names.
Lots happened since those cows. So he basically says, Magneto killed you under orders he never understood. Again, Sublime's control. Scott lost his heart, lost his chance. Hank stuck around and tried, but it fell apart, and Hank tried kick, like basically to keep it together. And he says that was long before we realized, or anyone realized, that hypercortisone D was Sublime's aerosol form. And by that time, Hank was gone, replaced by a bacteria and a global disease, and humanity died.
Yep.
And they show like a little one-off of like some remaining X-Men fighting Beast and his evil X-Men, which I would love to read that comic. Just there's little archangels in there. There's a gigantic like metal,
Who's that metal dude? I don't know. I want to. It looks like a little Green Lantern guy at the bottom right with the power hands, and I'm like, I want to see that. Like that looks good.
Yeah, it looks cool. It's like we went to war. It's been a heck of a time. Like basically explaining how we got to this dark future. This specific Days of Future Past.
Yes. We switch over to Cassandra Nova and Martha. Cassandra Nova is kind of just talking about like, I love being in your mind. We've always been a very good team. And she goes, oh no, not like this. And she's literally like torn apart by something. And Martha comes falling onto the deck of the ship that they're, I guess, still in. I forgot that they were on a ship at this point, but whatever. And so Cassandra Nova and Martha are officially dead.
Yeah, they get blown up. This is where they reveal that Martha was no girl, which I think on the Slack, I was like bristling at this when Mai brought it up, and Mai was right. I just remember thinking it was like so obviously just a joke, but it's Martha's alter ego to this.
It feels like a joke. Like it feels very much like the setup of a joke, and it almost like even this, like it almost feels like a joke made real. Like they just joked about it so much that she just made a no girl or something. Like I don't know. I'm kind of with you that I don't like the fact that it's like called out right here either. So
yeah, it's also all the Cassandra Nova exposition of this is pretty sloppy. Like with her just being, yes, you can call me Ernst. Yes, you were no girl. It's just kind of weird. We get a little bit of closure with the 3-in-1 where they self-destruct Cerebro as the mutated mind-infected X-Men.
Yes. Destroy them.
They're not allowing themselves to be eaten.
And specifically, like they start a self-destruct sequence for Weapon 14. That's like, because you mentioned this earlier and I was like, wait, I must have, and going back, I was like, oh yeah, of course it's right here in the text. So, I do not like this triplets rule thing.
That should not be anyone's last words.
Jesus Christ.
How weird would it be if it was like my last words? Like I'm not a triplet, but I'm just like triplets rule. I died.
He died the way he lived, praising triplets.
Yeah, just like, it's a real amateur move to be way into twins. I want 1.5 times the pleasure of that.
I'm really good friends, and I used to be roommates with 2 of 3 triplets. Like they're 3 brothers, and I'm really, really good friends with 2 of them, and I can't fucking stand the third guy. So
that's amazing.
Like friends with Facebooks, it's my ride or die guys. Like if they call me up tomorrow, it's like I need to hide a dead body. I'd be like, okay. I mean, sure. Like you've done a lot of shit for me in the past. Like, all right, let's do it. But that third guy, fuck him. So
are they identical triplets?
No,
because they're okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know whether there were like identical, because I know there are identical twins and fraternal twins, but I don't know if there are identical triplets or not.
It's weird from oldest to youngest, which is like a matter of minutes, goes like tallest to shortest, which is very strange to me. Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, but anyway, triplets rule is a very weird thing to say.
Triplets do rule. In my future last words, I guess me making that joke also would have been true if I died right after saying it on the podcast.
Ooh,
which would have been a dark joke as well.
It's
but luckily I'm still alive.
Have you ever thought about like what would happen if your co-host just dies on the mic with you, and like you're just sit there like, what do you do? Like I could call the police in Portland, but I could tell them like go to the place that's kind of near a Voodoo Donuts. I think I don't remember where he lives. There was a courtyard.
I thought about that too, and I think that the idea, like what I would do is go to Facebook, where like family members and stuff might know that shit.
Oh, word. Okay.
You know, like, because I legitimately have thought about it, like in the times when like people who I record with who are generally not like late or something, you know, but are late, like something's going on. I'm just like, I hope they're all right. And I'll send a text, and it's never gone further than that. But I'm like, if they didn't answer their text, like, you know, I could figure out if I had to, I can get in touch with Cole's mom and get a well-being check going on.
Well, I mean, everybody, if they had to, can get in touch with Cole's mom. You know what I'm saying?
Triplets rule.
So they shout out triplets rule, and then they get overrun by the feeder infected mutants, presumably to death. We jump back over to I guess they're still on a ship when Phoenix Beast shows up, and he's, you know, this line, Gary, I drowned the last whale. I can do anything now. Like,
yeah.
Are you on kick? Are you kick? What's happening right now? He looks awesome though. Like this, like the way his cape looks and shit in this. Like this is very cool looking. And the X-Men basically take turns dying against him. Yep.
In this, like Beak runs up and is like, you know, can you shut your mouth? Woohoo! And he just makes a beast noise and destroys him because he's got godhood traits, you know. Basically says he has everything. Tom Skylark starts begging for Rover to come back. And one little bit of Tom Skylark dialogue I like, where he's like, what is this about? Why do there always have to be people like you? You know, and that's like a very relatable feeling to me.
Yeah.
You know, when you run into villainy in the world.
I'm very distracted by these weird CGI effects that they decided to put on these panels. Like, I just don't know like what they're doing or what they're supposed to be doing. Like, I guess they're like his powers, like the Beast powers, but like it just, anytime they do this weird like mixed CGI special effects on the page, it just never looks good to me.
Doesn't age real well.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the style at the time, like it was an innovation, you know, but it's not. You know, some colorist decided to do it in post. The Rover comes out of the water, you know, and says like with a non-stuttering voice, you know, destroy, knocking the beast down. And the beast is about to kill him before Eva pops up and starts shooting him with bullets, and he takes her and like basically controls her. Like he knows who she is. He can rewrite her genetic code and says, give me an uncontrolled explosion of useless body parts, an unstoppable cancer storm. And she starts exploding in like tendrils of flesh.
Yeah. It's weird to get a Fallout 76 like origin story in this comic book, but here we are. You're burnt.
You know, and him. And this is where he confirms, you know, we knew that Sublime was in charge of the Weapon Plus program, but he, you know, he confirms it here. Like Weapon 13, I created you once, I can make you now.
Yeah. Generate trash codes is a pretty good call out. Like, what did they call the things like people call out in video game or whatever, like the yelps or yells or whatever, like
it's barks.
Yeah, barks. Thank you. Yeah, generate trash codes. Like I want that in a Snoop Dogg voice.
In Star Ocean 2, which is a game I wouldn't play again, like if you paid me. Well, I played that as a teen, and one of the characters says "maximum esoteric attack" as good their
shit.
thing.
I'm hurt, but I don't know why.
Bad shit. Is in fact actually. The Tito is dying there. Wolverine goes to go help him, and he's like sadly failed. You know, he's like, I knew I'd mess up. Granddad's gonna be looking down on me in heaven. I could never live up to his legacy. And Wolverine, like, who knew Beak, is like, you're 3 feet taller than your granddad. You know, like, let yourself go. You did good. Fly. It's like, you know, it's pretty sad.
Yeah. I guess Rover is just standing by while this is happening.
Yep.
Like the continuity
Hanging
of
out.
some of this fight is just like destroy. Oh no, I'm sorry. In this page, they actually show Rover dead. Like they show him burning on the first panel of this. Never mind. So I guess like you just see.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just see like off panel, but you don't see it to see like Rover dying. Okay.
You're right. It's just on the left there. It's very subtle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Weird.
because I said it was just the X-Men taking turns dying against him. Like that's basically what happens. Like they just run up to him and die. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. They don't get to see the Sentinel die.
And this is definitely Wolverine killing Tito/Beak, right? Like this is Wolverine putting him down. Yeah. And Wolverine, like, and this is the kind of thing that I think that you expect is like, oh, Wolverine's the last one. Like he's gonna go take this guy down, and it doesn't work. Like it's and you could see Jean Grey yelling at him like, "Don't let him contaminate you. Don't fight." But Wolverine can't help himself. He keeps going after him harder and harder. And eventually Sublime gets a hold of him and turns off his mutant healing gene, and then he just like falls to the ground.
Yeah. He says, did you think you would live forever, you little speck? And knocks him away with CGI. He's falling and he's dying. He sees Martha, who is leaking and is like, can you help me out? And she says, it's all right, Logan, we're going to the White Hot Room, which is basically, some kind of version of heaven of this. Beast is, basically doing his villain speech. Like you and I are going to remake God in our image, and Jean Grey's not having it. Like all this was a distraction for my disinfection. My friends were keeping you busy. Be calm and accept your judgment. Did you really think you'd live forever, you little speck?
Yeah, and the voice and the text bubble changes. She goes from Jean Grey talking to the Phoenix talking pretty quickly there, and like in her eye, you see the Phoenix bloom, and she shoots green goo at him, and then basically. I say shoots, but she pulls out a ball of goo, which is like which is what Sublime is. Like these are the particles that make it Sublime. And when she does that, like Beast mind comes back, and he's like, I don't know where I lied about the cure for humans. I tried to save it. No one was left. I lost. Like I can't believe I lasted this long with my asthma. Like he's like dusting his glasses in a very like Beast move. Like it's like Hank gets taken over. But just as that happens, his head comes off, and Apollyon is there, and he has used the glaive from Dark Sector to
he's Dark Sectored his head off. It's pretty weird. But now that he's like, the Beast is dead, all is perfected, and he takes off his mask. And here is, this is so clearly Phantom X, and I'm so mad at editorial because EVA like starts recognizing him. Yes. Like starts like, she's dying. She's just a puddle of goo, but she's like, Phantom X, is that you? I thought I heard. And Tom goes over there, like, I'm sorry, I can make this better. Wolverine is dying. Not everyone's dead. Like Tom's still alive. Jean's still alive, but things are bad.
Yeah.
Not good enough right now.
And Logan says, peace at last. It had to be something like this. Had to be something nuts like this. I've been in here before. That echo. Do you mind if I hand it over to you, darling? And this is where like this arc was off the rails. Now, Now, what the fuck is happening? Like, where are we? What's happening? Why are people talking with slashes? Like, what is going on with any of this?
Yeah. So this is the White Hot Room, and this is where like the Council of Phoenixes or whatever figure out proper reality and burn away things that don't work. And the black text boxes are the council or whatever talking to Jean.
Yep.
Jean is the other one. And she's still, basically they're saying like, hey, as the Phoenix, your job was to prevent this and you lost your concentration. And she's like, oh yeah, I lost my concentration. It's like, yeah, the heart got stuck. You have to fix it. You disinfected this timeline, but if you want to grow a new timeline, you have to go back and actually water it. Like
yes.
you have to fix the original timeline, and we get to see all of these Phoenixes, like all of these people wearing the Jean Grey Phoenix uniform, which is real wild. This stuff did get followed up on in X-Men, but not as much as you might think. And it's interesting. I haven't read a lot of it. I read Phoenix End Song and Phoenix War Song, a couple of things that deal with this, but not tons.
Actually, I wouldn't mind. I can't remember what they called the event, but like when 7 X-Men get the Phoenix Force and like start going fucking nuts. Like I remember reading that and like thinking like thinking there was a lot there. I wouldn't mind like delving deep into that. Obviously, like we're doing Age of Apocalypse next, but as most X-Men fans, like I'm really interested in this Phoenix stuff. So I would be like, all of that stuff is very cool to me.
Oh yeah. The show goes on long enough. There's no reason why we can't do anything.
It's true. 75 years old, everybody. I'm the X-Men podcast.
Exactly. I never thought we'd podcast this long with our asthma. So she doesn't really know what that means, like water the universe, and they tell her like Henry's heartbroken, Scott succumbs to loneliness and doubt, all is lost and less. And she starts having flashbacks to the run. These like key lines.
Every diamond has its flaw. Gus was a good dog. Are these words from the future? I also like in the scene, the page before that they're talking like it's a badly wounded universe, like Phoenix work. Like I like that the idea that like this is what the Phoenix is for, because really before this it's just been like, oh, crazy cosmic entity that shows up and eats planets and then goes away when like, and is a kind of a weird metaphor for suppressed sexual appetite. Versus this,
the
which
Phoenix
is made
was something
clear
to make the Shi'ar mad. And this is like giving them a higher purpose, like a cosmic purpose, like in a way that I think is actually extremely cool and is a major contribution to the mythos. From this, and including in this space is Quentin Quire. When they said like his form ascended to a higher consciousness, instead of dying, like when they did that at the end of Riot Xavier, this is what they meant. Like Xavier's giving that speech, he's like, oh, he ascended to a higher plane. I know that sounds like a cliche, but we believe it's close to literal truth. And that's what happened. Like he had that kind of power, that level of power where he has joined this Phoenix collective. And he's basically saying like, if you want to grow a new future in the place, you have to water it with heart's blood. You've got to do that. That's what they said. And that you have to hurry. And as he leaves, he's like, if it was me, I would just let it die. And she's like, no, I can't do that. She looks at the universe that she's holding in her hands, the little like swirling massive stars, manifests the little Phoenix raptor over it and says, live, Scott. And then the Phoenix says, live. And then we cut over to Emma Frost's boob funeral, which we've cut over to a couple times during this. It's been a minute since I've seen this art and, don't love it.
Hey, before we get too far, I just like go back to that previous page. To the left of Quentin is a Phoenix that just has one just exposed booty. Like if there's ever been a booty called a bootay, that is one bootay. Like
she's wearing a sash and only a sash.
Yeah, and some leggings. Like is this the Phoenix of porn universe? Like what is this? That's pretty wild. I was going to make a joke about the Phoenix Force and then all of the various porn tags that begin with the word force. Okay.
But then realized like, those are porn tags, and in a porn consensual context, those are fun. But without that context, if someone was not as porn tag literate as I am, it would sound gross.
It's a weird brag.
Not doing it.
But okay, sure.
Hey man.
Porn tag literate, yeah.
That's me.
I know all of the secret literotica tags. Let me tell you what stories I can find.
I get porn from the secret menu. I just do hashtag animal style on all my shit.
I learned that if you're playing Subnautica on Xbox, you can hold LB, RB, and hit start, and you get access to the console command codes. And like this feels like what you're doing right now. Like I held LB, RB, and now I can type in any porn tag I want.
Yeah, secret porns that the government doesn't want you to have. 6 secret boobs the doctors don't want you to know. So we're back at the funeral, and we're getting the same dialogue as before. Because this is where history switches, and the difference being, Scott, instead of just being like, no, I give up and walking away, he says, and when Emma Frost says, don't you want to inherit the earth? And he says, and the first time we saw this, he says, no, and he walks away. And this time he says, yes. And he kisses her.
Yep.
And that repaired the timeline. Like now, the world needs the X-Men. Without the X-Men, all that horrible shit we just saw happens. And with Scott, the X-Men can continue and the world can go on.
Yes. And this is an ending. I like this. And obviously, like, you can't have all of this bullshit that happened just now. Like, it had to. This is not the future of the X-Men. Like, you're just not going to let these characters go down like that, right? Like, you're just not going to turn Beast into a weird host for intelligent parasitic colony of bacteria. But to cut this off is really interesting. It feels like a big brain move. And it reminds me a lot of the ending of the Dark Tower, which I won't really get into right now, but it has kind of a similar, okay, here we go again kind of feel to it. And I like it, and I don't know really what I'm looking for. I don't know, man. I'm so like, it feels so weird to say, okay, like the mechanics of this really boggle my mind. Like, did she kill the bacteria? Like, is the bacteria gone now? Like, is that the presumption? Like, no, we don't have to worry about that anymore, even though like we just went back to a time where the bacteria still existed. Like, if she can do that, why didn't she cure AIDS? Like, that seems like it'd be a cool thing to do. Like,
so she didn't. Like, I think in that future, she wiped out Sublime.
Sure.
But that future was, so that timeline basically had no future at this point. Like, Sublime had already destroyed everything. So we're back in the current time where Sublime is still extant, but the X-Men are around to fight, Sublime. Like, I don't know how much that pays off, like whether Sublime shows up later. I think that he does, but I don't really know that other writers like shared the vision or anything like that. So in terms of continuity, like, I feel like it probably doesn't pay off. But I think the implication is it's okay that Sublime is there. The only thing that allowed him to have that ultimate world-ending success was the X-Men giving up hope. The idea that this is like, it basically is it's one person, like the heart of the X-Men, Scott Summers, is what is needed to save the world.
Yeah.
Is the message.
And which is good. Like, this is like classic. Like, if you think back to the Phoenix stuff, like Dark Phoenix stuff, I know they did this in the comic book and they replicated it in the original animated series. Like, the power of friendship is an important theme. Like, that's why they get through some of this, is like they take the X-Men's love for one another and their hope for the future, and that usually solves the crisis. And I very much enjoy this arc overall. It's really weird that Jean Grey was just like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to make Cyclops like keep going. Like, my decision for Cyclops is that he keeps doing this over and over again. And if you compare this, like if you put this in context with the things that Cyclops becomes, which I'm really going to be super excited to get to and talk about one day, is kind of a damning thing. Like, I think like the fact that, some pretty major X-Men spoilers, I guess, for the last 10 years, but like he kills Xavier. He turns into a mutant terrorist that may be right or not. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens to Cyclops, which you can trace back to right here, where he tried to leave and his cosmic girlfriend said, nah, you can't do that. You have a duty. And it's just kind of wild to think about that. Like, it's kind of wild. Like, I hooked up with the redhead when I was a teenager, so now she gets to control my destiny. Like, it's Cyclops is the ultimate cosmic pay pig, is what I'm saying.
He's a load-bearing ex. It's my load-bearing ex-boyfriend, and not the ones that bore all my loads.
Yeah, and not the ones in Extralia. That's not what I'm talking about either.
Yeah, different exes. I think that there's like two answers for that. There's like the in-universe one, and then the real world one, right? Of that tension. Like, the in-universe answer is that even with all that stuff that Scott turned into and what he did, that is better than the alternative, because the alternative is literally the end of the world, right? Mm-hmm. And then, but the real answer is that other writers didn't share this vision, and that's how comics work.
Yeah, of course.
There's X-Men isn't a story. Like, it is a framework in which stories can happen. Mm-hmm. And the stories that came after this are not, even the stuff that directly follows it, like, the stuff with Zorn, like, coming back and stuff, like, that has nothing to do with this. Like, this introduced Zorn, but they're just different stories using the same kind of iconography and framework.
Yeah. There's always a lighthouse. There's always a Cyclops.
Yeah. There's always going to be a Cyclops, and different writers have different directions, and those directions will take, but we have not seen the end of heroic Cyclops. I'm sure, like, somebody will reboot him or something like that. Like, anything without an end is always going to be that sloppy. Because stories have endings, like, that's how they work. And you can't really have a story without an ending, so you end up having a lot of stories linked together. And it just ends up being kind of a weird thing. I think that if, let's say, like, the way that would have paid off entirely is if Grant Morrison loved his time with Marvel and ended up taking an editorial position. Like, let's say Marvel, and they might have even offered him this because this book was, like, a huge hit, and said, like, hey, how would you like to direct the line? And then we would probably have gotten a few years of that timeline and dynamic, and it would have been pretty cool, but we didn't get that. Like, he immediately left the company. Marvel tried to chase, and we'll talk about this a lot in a couple episodes. We do the, like, final wrap up, but, like, Marvel tried to chase some of that indie cred, like they ended up giving X-Men over to Peter Milligan, who was hot off the heels of Ecstatics. And that ended up being a really weird arc or run that I would love to talk about at some point, because it's not great, but it's super strange. But it's not the same thing. Like, I think that for Grant Morrison, as much as like you can quibble with his execution of things, I think that he definitely has a vision. And that's something that ends up being missing from the line a lot of the time. Not always, but like a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think overall, like this is a good way to end this story. Like we talked a lot about Grant Morrison using X-Men tropes as story beats throughout this. Like we had the Shi'ar, we had space stuff, we had coming back from the dead, we had Magneto, we had all this stuff, and like kind of weird time traveling, universe fixing hijinks is that's a standard X-Men thing. And I'm sure, like, I haven't looked, but I'm sure, like, at the time, a bunch of fans were like, well, if they're 150 years in the future, why didn't da-da-da-da-da-da? Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of that you could do, but, like, the Phoenix just fixing this does feel satisfying. Like, it feels very much like an expansion on, the X-Men's hope is what keeps hope alive. Like, the fact that any one of them has hope means that hope is still alive, and, like, that's the core of Xavier's dream. I just wish it doesn't accompanied by Emma Frost's weirdly drawn boobs.
Yeah, and Tom Skylark's robot sex fantasies and stuff. Like, there's a lot of cruft to it, but it's very of a piece with the current, the run before this. When you look at Cyclops, there's multiple times in this run where he is the person who comes back and saves the day, right? Like when him and Zorn are on the Shi'ar ship, and they get out, there's like that really adventuresome panel with them, like we'll figure out our way. And he basically leads the coup against Magneto, where, the kids are down there and like Peak is like, there are no more X-Men. He's like, no, how about 2 X-Men? And it's him and Phantom X. Like he is the heart of the team. And it has been part of this run, the idea that like X-Men need their heart. And it makes a nice contrast with both like Cassandra Nova before she was kind of grown to be a person, and Sublime, who has none of that. Like, you contrast how much the X-Men love each other with how much, how Sublime treats his people. Like it's of a piece. Like, it is philosophically of a piece as an ending, even though the execution is fucking weird because we spend a lot of time with characters we don't care about. And it is somebody, snapping their fingers and making it go away. But the way they make it go away, I think, is important. Like how they make it go away through changing somebody's heart.
Yeah.
And it's her love. Like, it's her telling it, hey, move on, move on from this morning. Like, well,
I mean,
go have you're in love with Emma Frost.
Hopefully Wolverine still used a little mind shield to keep away the Emma Frost thing, right? Like, he was just like, you guys were super in love and there were no problems whatsoever. Yeah. No. Just stop right there. Stop in 1997. No, stop right there. Yeah. But yeah, like I think this works well. It's really difficult to end these kind of stories in a satisfying manner when you have like the X-Men have to pick up the pieces and move on. And as we're going to see in the next episode of this podcast, like the way Marvel followed a lot of this up just was straight up not good. So yeah. But what we're going to
talk about it very quickly. Yeah. Quickly, we're at the end of this run, but we are going to do 2 episodes or 1 episode on the 2 issues that still have the new X-Men branding.
Yeah.
Different creative team, night and day. Like nothing. If you're ever trying to explain to somebody why the new X-Men run is good, have them read any issue of the run and then the first issue once another writer takes over, because it's, and here's the thing I'm going to blow your mind with, Jeremy. This is probably the best, these 2 comics are probably the best Chuck Austin comics I've ever read.
Wow.
Yeah. It gets so much worse than this. Like, I was reading his Uncanny shit around this time and hating it. I just like the X-Men. And it's absolutely horrendous. Like, we're going to talk about that next episode.
Yeah. So a general outline for what we're about to do next. The next episode will be on those last 2 issues of the new X-Men. We're going to do a wrap-up episode. So where we talk about our thoughts and feelings, and that'll be also our feedback episode. I think we talked about. Is that right? And so we'll if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have thoughts, if you have cool theories that we maybe have missed or cool Easter eggs that we missed, daysoffuturecast.com/contact or DM us on Twitter at DOFC podcast.
Absolutely. Ratings, reviews on Apple Podcast. Those are nice as well. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Do it.
And then after all of that, we'll start Age of Apocalypse, and I will probably spend some point this week putting together a reading list for that. So that'll be up on the website, so you can know exactly what issues to start with, because there's some stuff we're skipping. I don't think we're going to cover Blink. for instance. That's
yeah,
all that shit sucks.
I don't like that Blink miniseries very much. So we're not going to be as totally exhaustive. We'll figure out what we're covering.
Mm-hmm.
So also, I don't know that we're going to do like Legion Quest is the origin of this, but I remember it being a slog as a comic.
Yeah,
I kind of don't want to cover it. It's 8 issues. The X-Men, Legion goes back in time. The X-Men go to stop him. They fail.
Yeah,
that's basically it. Like, I think we can get through that in a setup.
This may be
paragraph without reading those comics.
This may be a situation where we say, go read Legion Quest if you really want to, or listen to this 30-minute episode of this podcast where we talk about Legion Quest and all 8 issues. Like we're not going to fuck around. We're doing a panel by panel breakdown. And and Greer and I, as time progresses, we'll figure all that shit out and let you know. So yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for everybody for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to wrap up New X-Men.